Hello, you're watching Eye on Africa on France 24. I'm Nadia Massi. Here's what's coming up in the show this Monday. Presidential elections in Liberia, the runoff race between footballer turned president George Weah and Joseph Boakai is expected to be close. It's a rematch of the last election back in 2017. We'll head to Ivory Coast to find out why a growing number of babies there are not being formally registered and what impact that is having on their lives. Also coming up, I'll talk to Kahi Lumumba, the founder of Adiocom, about African digital creativity and the continent's growing number of social media influencers. Welcome to the programme. Our top story this Monday. Liberia is gearing up for the runoff presidential election, which is to be held tomorrow. President George Weah is fighting to keep his job and facing stiff competition from the country's former vice president, Joseph Boakai. The election is a rematch of 2017, when Weah defeated the vice president with 61% of the vote. But since then, some voters in the country have become disenchanted with Weah, particularly over issues of corruption and unemployment. And this race is expected to be close. With more details, here's Clarisse Fortuné.
A final push before the big day. Joseph Boakai supporters in the streets of the capital Monrovia. In a last effort to attract voters, the second presidential round will see a face-off between Boakai and current President George Weah, a similar scenario to the 2017 election. Only this time, the two candidates are now neck and neck, with Weah leading by only 7,000 votes in the first round. The ex-football star says he's been working in favor of education and access to electricity, the construction of roads and hospitals, promising to continue working for the development of one of the poorest countries on the planet. But his critics accuse him of not having kept his promises. Joseph Boakai blames George Weah above all for the worsening of corruption known to be endemic. And throughout his campaign, Boakai was presented by his team as a man of integrity, whose credentials make him the only candidate able to tackle corruption. He has also pledged to improve infrastructure, invest in agriculture, attract investments, and open the country to tourism. His opponents argue his age is a handicap, suggesting the 78-year-old is out of touch in a country where 60% of the population is under the age of 25. If the first round of the election was largely peaceful, with few reported sporadic clashes, the very competitive second round promises to be tense, whatever the result.
Next, to another election, this one in Senegal. It's not scheduled until February of next year, but all 35 opposition candidates have just formed a new coalition. They argue that Senegal's democracy has been undermined by its current president, Macky Sall. With more details, here's Sira Theridge reporting now from the Senegalese capital, Dakar.
The new Senegalese opposition coalition has 35 members, and all of them are running in next year's presidential race. The Front for Inclusiveness and Transparency of Elections, short FIT, which also means courage in Wolof, unites behind a common fight: reinstalling democracy in Senegal and ensuring the participation of all candidates, such as of the most prominent opposition figure Ousmane Sonko, who's still being detained. Other members include former Prime Minister Aminata Touré. The new coalition is now planning a number of actions for the next days and weeks ahead, such as rallies and demonstrations, as well as launching an appeal against Macky Sall's election commission, just ahead of the elections next year in February.
Now, according to the UN Agency for Children, UNICEF, across the world, nearly 230 million children under the age of 5 have not had their births registered. 1 in 3 of those children lives in India, but it's also a problem in Ivory Coast. And as our reporters there have been finding out, children who aren't registered face a litany of challenges, from education to healthcare.
Maya and her team of volunteers walk through the Boakai market to help mothers whose children do not have a birth certificate. Childbirths in Ivory Coast are largely undeclared. Many parents blame poverty and the lack of time for this. Half of childbirths are not declared on time, and 32% of them never get declared at all.
We didn't have time to register them, so they refused my 2 children in school. I have to register them, but I'm told that without a certificate, they can't take them, so I'm stuck.
A special law now allows parents who register the birth of their children late to do so free with no penalties. However, many young people are still not aware of this change.
It's not free. That's why I do wheelbarrow work. I have to make money to copy my birth certificate.
UNICEF and the foundation of the Ivorian football star Sebastien Haller are organizing a football tournament in several cities in Ivory Coast until December. To participate, one has to have a birth certificate. Each winning team will be invited to Abidjan to meet and spend time with Sebastien.
Every winning team will be invited to Abidjan to meet and spend time with Sebastian. The desire to win and meet this star gave many people the desire to participate.
On the edges of the field where the games are happening, Onesi, the office responsible for national identification in Ivory Coast, takes some of the participants through the registration process. Onesi wants to raise awareness and digitize its registration process to make it easier for parents to register their children.
Justice Badou and our team in Ivory Coast reporting for us there. Now, last week, the 7th annual ADICOM Days event was held here in Paris to showcase African digital creativity. The idea was to bring together top influencers, content creators, and experts in communication from across the continent, but also among the African diaspora. Now, the event is a brainchild of Kahi Lumumba, and I'm pleased to say that he's with me now here in the studio. Welcome to Iron Africa, and thanks for joining us.
Thank you for your invitation.
We're really pleased that you're here. So tell us a bit about the event this last week, because you've held them before. You've held them in places like Senegal, Ivory Coast, Nigeria. This one was in Paris,
yes.
Not in Africa. Why here?
For us, it was really important to show that thanks to digital, we can build bridges between the continent and the diaspora. It's true that physically you think, oh, this is two different things. But through internet, through the digital, we are really, really connected. People who are influencers in the diaspora are followed by people in Africa and vice versa. So it's important also for us to make sure that the diaspora knows that if they have projects, like project with big content to impact thanks to the digital in Africa, there is a platform like ADICOM, like us, where they can connect and they can come to have more impact.
Okay, so let's talk a bit more about the theme of this year's event. It was called Content, Communities and Business.
Yeah.
Why that title? Why the word business?
Okay, so like 10 or 12 years ago, when social media became a big thing in Africa, like you had a lot of those young people who went into Twitter and say, okay, we need internet for everyone. It was more like activists. And then after that, with the hobby, the passion, people trying to build blogs because they love food, they love travels, etc. Passion. But now people want money.
Well, fair enough.
Yeah, they want money. So that's why we say, okay, now we realize that the youth on the internet is trying to understand how it works, how it really works, what are the business models behind those platforms, what are the business models behind all this creator economy. What I call creator economy is the influencer, the brand, all those people who create content. Why? But because if you have the right tools, you can make money, you can build your company, you can hire teams, you can create jobs, and you can create an industry. That's our vision.
And that is something that is happening in some ways already here in Europe, isn't it?
Yeah.
You have content creators who make quite a lot of money through selling themselves and products that they're given on Instagram. You say you're trying to do that with African influencers. Are you copying a European model, or is it a bit distinct in Africa?
Ah, right. Good question. It's true that the first thing for us is to make sure that people understand that it's possible. Because you mentioned the West, it's true that I saw this report where they say they have 50 million content creators, but only 2 million who are professional, like they are living.
They make their living out of it.
Yeah, they make their living out of that. And now for us is to make sure that people understand that even in Africa, there are people who now live thanks to those economies. So now the difference, I will say, is that, you know, in the conference, for example, last Friday, we have a big part for business impact, but also social impact. We have a responsibility. When you are an influencer in Africa, I mean, this is our vision. We also think that it's your responsibility to build a community and to have a positive impact. So we're trying to tell people, when you create concept, also think about what the good things that you can do. So it's more a responsible way, and the young Africans are doing it naturally. They're already involved into social impact and to have their community to involve themselves in good causes.
That's interesting. So it's actually not just about making money.
That's not, but I mean, that's still a major point.
Yeah.
And it's important because we need those creators to have, it's like they have their own media, and in this way they can change the narrative about Africa. We need complementary media, like I know people can follow France 24, but also people are more and more attached to people.
Right.
So we need to have figures who are able to articulate their narrative, what they see, what they offer, what their vision. And it's really, really important that we have those new, I will say, griots.
Yeah. And I was going to ask you about that because clearly, as you suggest, you know, the media is evolving and the way people consume information is evolving here in Europe, on the African continent as well. And in some ways, you know, an interview like this in a television studio watched by somebody at home is a little bit old-fashioned, isn't it? And more people are consuming their information on platforms like Instagram. So I wonder if you think the kind of people that you're working with, these Instagrammers, these influencers, are they the sort of the future of how we consume information online?
I think both work, but it's true that social media are more spontaneous. Like, for example, you know, you see just my team there is already on Instagram filming this moment. Yes. And people want to have the thing as quick as possible. But the big difference, it's more about the engagement. With the social media, you can have a conversation, you can have a discussion, you can exchange your opinions. And I will say, like television, like you consume, but you cannot really interact. And that's why now the television can have also big social media presence where you can debate, you can have those conversations. But I think that you reach also a different level of person when you're on TV. It's not really the same target. So it's important that it's just an evolution of the media space, and that's it.
Okay, so my job can keep going even if I'm not on Instagram.
Don't worry about that.
All right, well, that's very reassuring.
Let's come on Instagram too.
I should do. There's no denying that, particularly as your colleagues here are filming what we're doing, and it'll be on Instagram very soon. There's lots more questions I'd like to ask you, but unfortunately we are out of time. Thank you very much, Kahi Lumumba. It's been a pleasure.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks to you as well for watching Eye on Africa. That's it for this programme. Do stay tuned. More world news coming up live here on France 24 very shortly. Bye from me.